showed a young wife kneeling by the bedside of her 2 sleeping babies, gazing out the window at the moon over a snow-covered landscape as she clasps to her breast a small framed portrait. Opposite this scene of home, her soldier husband is shown sitting by a lonely campfire, gun in one hand, and he too holds a framed portrait of his loved ones as the moon shines down over a frozen river. The third prominent element of the illustration is a vignette of soldiers' graves. Where a year before soldiers had written home full of patriotic zeal and brash confidence of victory, now many openly prayed that the war would just be over and that they might be home with their families again. "Another Christmas is past and gone," wrote Confederate Captain Jim Womack of the 16th Tennessee Infantry. "How differently spent from that of '61. That I passed in Charleston and Fort Sumter, where I was delighted and pleased. This I have spent in my tent by the fire near Murfreesboro, attending to many of the daily duties of the soldier. May the coming Christmas in '63 find our now distracted and unhappy country reposing in the lap of an infantile and glorious peace." For many, the Christmas of '62 afforded not even a brief respite from the grim press or just plain tedium of war. President and Mrs. Lincoln spent part of the day visiting the men who now crowded hospitals in the capital, wounded in the recent fighting at Antietam in nearby Maryland, where, in a single terrible day, 6,000 had died and 17,000 were wounded. William M. Woodcock, a Union soldier in the 9th Kentucky Infantry, jotted down in his diary the abortive attempt of the men in his regiment to get a celebration going on this Christmas Day. All hands raised, hollering "Christmas gift," "Hurrah for Christmas," etc., but were soon stopped in their preparations for a gala day by an order to get ready immediately to go on picket. An Ohio soldier stationed north of Murfreesboro, Tennessee, wrote simply, "Christmas Day was no holiday for us. After breakfast we received orders to march." Elias D. Moore of the 114th Ohio Volunteer Infantry spent Christmas on a gunboat that had been sent down the Mississippi to the Yazoo River. The day turned out to be just any other day of Army hurry-up-and-wait drill and bad Army food. "We awoke this morning by being called to go on guard," Moore wrote in his diary on Christmas Day, 1862. "At noon I eat my Christmas dinner off a cracker. Fat meat and coffee made of water caught out of the boiler and was not boiled." Many soldiers' thoughts on Christmas Day of 1862 turned to the familiar comforts of holiday food of celebrations gone by. But absent this year was the abundance of family feasts of years past. Gone were even the improvised Christmas meals that soldiers had managed to put together the year before with gifts from home. Wartime shortages were beginning to tell. In Richmond, turkeys were going for $11 each. Sugar for candies and cakes was $8 a pound. There were far fewer delicacies in the express boxes this year. The sutlers who peddled their wares to soldiers in camp were charging outrageous prices for the few treats they had to offer. $1 a pound for butter, 50 cents a pound for some dubious sausages. "Christmas has come and gone," wrote Reuben Searcy of the 34th Alabama to his mother from camp near Murfreesboro, Tennessee, on the day after Christmas. "But how differently did I celebrate its coming this year. The only thing that impressed me with the fact that it was Christmas was that we did not have drill, and a drink of some 14-year-old whiskey that was given to me by a friend." One Southern lady tried to make light of the hardships and shortages with a humorous poem that was printed in the December 1862 edition of the Southern Illustrated News. Santa Claus, she explained, had simply fallen afoul of the Yankee blockade. "This happened one Christmas. I'm sorry to write. Our ports are blockaded, and Santa, tonight, will hardly get down here. For if he should start, the Yankees would get him unless he was smart. They beat all the men in creation to run, and if they could get him, they'd think it fine fun to put him in prison and steal the nice toys he started to bring to our girls and boys. But try not to mind it. Tell over your jokes. Be gay and be cheerful, like other good folks. For if you remember to be good and kind, old Santa next Christmas will bear it in mind. But the truth was that for many it was the bleakest Christmas in many a year. Christmas Day, the poorest ever spent, recorded a Virginia soldier. No eggnog, no turkey, no mince pie, nothing to eat or drink but our rations. We all talk of home today and wish to be there. Outside of Fredericksburg, Virginia, Major Frederick L. Hitchcock of the 132nd Pennsylvania Volunteers recorded in his diary his meager Christmas dinner. Hardtack, soaked in water, then fried in pork fat. The wish for a Merry Christmas was about all there was to make it such, he added glumly. Colonel Charles D. Hayden of the 2nd Michigan described his even less appetizing meal. We made Christmas dinner on beef, hardtack, and coffee. I had fortunately completed my meal when Moore made a discovery which checked him midway in his, namely that the hardtacks were full of bugs and worms. This is no uncommon thing of late, but his wry face was the most laughable thing of the day. Some Southern regiments especially resorted to drowning their sorrows in whatever whiskey they could still scrounge up, and to distracting themselves with rough, practical jokes of their own making. One young member of a Confederate unit was sent by his comrades with $1 to buy what he could in the way of food and drink. He came back with 90 cents worth of whiskey and 10 cents of bread. His colleagues upbraided him severely for having been so simple-minded as to spend so much on bread. The officers of the 20th Tennessee Infantry managed to procure a barrel of whiskey for their men to celebrate a Merry Christmas. But the result was more violent than merry. We had many a drunken fight and knockdown before the day was closed, recorded one soldier. The 45th Tennessee Infantry, encamped at Murfreesboro, was better off than many of its fellow Confederate units, since its members had been largely recruited from the immediate vicinity. The farms of Middle Tennessee had yet to suffer the depredations of war and blockade that had already beset much of the South, and many of the 45th had been given furloughs to visit their homes. They came back with home-baked pies and cakes. But in the air of gloom and scarcity that filled the camp, the sudden appearance of these Christmas delicacies evoked more jealousy and hard feelings than goodwill toward men. The soldiers of the 20th Tennessee, who were not so fortunate, promptly hatched a plan to seize by force and subterfuge some of the 45th's windfall. A snowball fight was arranged between the two regiments. As one member of the 20th recounted, a charge was ordered, and the boys of the 20th mixed up with the 45th in their own camp, and the battle waxed warm. And while about 3/4 of the 20th were waging war in the heart of the 45th's camp, the other 1/4 was packing off into our camp whatever they could. When the fight was over, the 45th did not have near as many good things as they did when it opened. They even lost a large % of their cooking utensils, and the best of their arms. In the thickest of the fight, 2 large soldiers caught me, and I was thrown into a ditch. One of them held me while the other nearly smothered me with snow. But I was doing my best to entertain them, for I knew that some of our men were confiscating what they had. Even the few traditional Christmas delicacies the soldiers could lay their hands on this Christmas had a way of turning to ashes in their mouths. What had, the year before, been a recreation of the comforts of Christmas at home was now a mocking reminder of how utterly impossible it was for Christmas in an army camp to be anything like Christmas at home. At the expense of $1.75, I procured a small turkey and had a Christmas